Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Badger Kart Club in Dousman, Wisconsin for the final day of action from round 3 of the 2024 U.S. Pro Kart Series. Morning warm-ups well underway here, and we are just getting going with the second of the two groups for KA100 Junior. They have been split for the warm-up, however, all will transfer to the main. And for the first time, actually all weekend, Alex, you made the great point. They've been split apart for all their practice sessions Friday, split apart into not 2 but 3 groups for qualifying, then split through 2 groups for the heat races and 2 groups here for warm-up, and then we're going to, for the very first time at all this weekend, have them all together, all 43 on the racetrack for the main event later this morning.
Yeah, it's not often that we see that many go-karts around this place, especially at the speeds that the KA Juniors and the KA Seniors wind up carrying as well, because they're going to have 45 out there on the racetrack for their feature race. They're still split up for the morning warm-up as well. So, yeah, the warm-up session, I mean, it's a good shakedown for the go-karts, but nonetheless, to me, if I was starting, you know, mid-pack, 23rd on back, this is the first time that you have drivers behind you. And so that's going to be a little bit sketchy, I think, going into the first couple of corners. Turn 1's a flat-out section of the racetrack. Shouldn't be too difficult to get through, you know, when the green flag is waved. But I think when we go through turns 2 and 3, if you're in that 20 on back group, it's going to be pretty chaotic.
Now, the other part that, you know, is cool about having the groups all together is that, you know, the whole lead pack is going to double or triple in size. We've had major players split on one side of the aisle or the other. Granted, they've all versed each other at least once. But not only is the mid-pack a whole lot bigger, or if a guy that starts, like you said, in 21st, 23rd, actually going to have a bunch of go-karts behind him, but, you know, there's going to be where there were, in the heat races, 1 or 2 drivers near you, and racing like that, as we saw Michael McGoy go a little wide, there's going to be 4 or 6. Right now, you can just look alone at the top of the time charts, 4 drivers within 1/10 of a second here in warm-up. Cash Perkins, Alexander Vanchev, Enzo Vidmontien, Nathan Dupuis. Only one of those 4 has won a heat race so far this weekend. The other 3 have not, but they're obviously fast enough that they could contend at the front. Benham Abernathy sits 5th, Sebastian Garzone 6th, Diego Ardiles, Chase Gassioli, Chaz Varial, and Eric Doan was in the top 10. He'll get bumped for a second, and a lot just got shuffled on through there. So everyone's taking in the morning here. It's a bit chilly to start the morning, as you can see. Jackets on most. Ryan Norberg's not smart enough. He's just got a t-shirt on right now, but at least he'll have his suit on later to warm up. But it's the coolest temperatures, at least for the drivers to get onto the racetrack, that we've seen over the course of the past 4 days.
Yeah, for sure. I got to the racetrack, us being the Florida boys that we are, me, Ryan, and then you've spent your days in Florida at some points in your careers, Andrew. So, yeah, I was pretty cold this morning. I'm still kind of cold in here. We got the AC turned up a little bit, I think, because yesterday it was much hotter than it was today. So, yeah, I've gotten a little bit used to it now. The chills have left my body, so I'm good. But for these drivers, like you mentioned, it's a new racetrack. The grip is still laid down. No rain for the first time all weekend, as, you know, swept over the racetrack overnight. So I'd say it's a similar racetrack. I'd love to hear from the drivers on what the conditions are like out there this morning in comparison to where we left off in yesterday's 3rd and final heat race. I'm sure it's going to be a much better racetrack with the cool temperatures as well, combined with the high grip that we saw during the day.
Now, as the last group for KA Junior comes to a close, folks, for those that were paying attention to the timetable for today, well, things have shifted a little bit by not having the need to run a B main for KA100 Junior or KA100 Senior. That has moved our day up tremendously. We're actually going to go green at 10:45 a.m. Eastern, 9:45 a.m. Central with Microsoft's main event. We'll be wrapped up on the racetrack by 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern here. One of the earliest endings of any U.S. Pro Kart Series weekend in history because, again, the new single main format has us racing on Sunday with just a warm-up and then a final. And the warm-ups have been relatively short. The mains relatively long to try and give us room for B mains prior to the A mains. That way everyone at least gets a session to race on the Sunday. But with no need for B mains here, that shaves about 45 minutes off of the total timetable. So we'll be done very, very early here, thankfully, due to the change. I think it might have moved us up as much as a full hour. So 10:45 a.m. Eastern, 9:45 a.m. Central will be the first main event with Microswift. We've still got quite a few drivers to get on the racetrack to run their morning warm-ups. KA Senior has 2 groups set to go here in a few moments. Then it'll be time for Mini Swift, X30 Junior, KA Masters, and X30 Pro Senior. In the final few laps, though, this group has surpassed most of that primary group that went out on the racetrack. Amador Martinez laid down a burner on the RPG Cosmic to go to the top. Austin Dromalev moved up to second. Eric Doan has jumped up the boards to 4th. Luca Popescu as well, big lap for him. Doan's going to go even better. And Eric Doan was starting to crack the top 10 in his heats yesterday. To go 3rd overall in warm-up is a big leap forward, but star of this class this weekend, it feels like, has been Amador Martinez. The RPG Cosmic driver has been very, very impressive. We got to talk to him, his first interview on Kart Chaser yesterday. Super fast. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. He has been quick, and outside of maybe Enzo Vidmontian and Turner Brown, I don't know if anyone's even been close. But for Amador, quick in warm-up by probably even a bigger margin than any of his heat races yesterday. 10th and a half to Austin Dromalev there on the Techno Kart. Doan, Perkins, Popescu, Vanchev, McGoy, Vidmontien, Nathan Dupuis. I mean, where do we have to go down? Turner Brown, 28th in morning warm-up. Enzo Vidmontien, P8. 2 of the major contenders from yesterday, and Turner Brown, your top qualifier.
Yeah, for sure. That's something I wanted to note there. I don't know if it's either just a setup difference or maybe just the track evolves even more. I doubt it this early in the morning, but it was pretty curious. I was curious to see kind of that first group, besides Vidmontien and a couple others, able to hold on to a top 10 spot in the warm-up session. I mean, for Chico Brown to be down in 28th, Jackson Wolney 32nd. Him and Chico Brown were working together for most of that warm-up session. Didn't really have a lot of pace, seemingly, on board the RPG Cosmic, and then the Car Republic there for the SCR of Jackson Wolney. So this second group a lot quicker. You mentioned Amador Martinez. He's going to start on the front row for the feature race momentarily, honestly, because the warm-ups are so short. So this, sort of conditions of the racetrack right now is what they're going to have to face in about an hour or so time for these KA100 junior drivers. So maybe just a bit of a setup difference. If I'm Chico Brown, I'm going back to the tent and saying, listen, why is my teammate so much faster than me right now? So, yeah, we'll have to see what they do at the drawing board.
Small gap in the action here as the KA seniors are getting set to roll. We'll use it as a moment here to step away. When we return, we've still got about 6 more groups to run here for the warm-up sessions, 5 classes in total. And then we will come back with more.
This is Henry. Henry feels sad. Henry feels sad because it's time for his next big race and his go-kart is in bits. Henry doesn't know that Acceleration Kart Racing is the United States' #1 shop for all of your karting equipment needs. Henry also doesn't know that Acceleration Kart Racing can deliver anything from tires to race suits and even wheels directly to your front door or to the racetrack itself, quickly and efficiently, with tech support available 6 days a week. Poor Henry doesn't even know that Acceleration Kart Racing offers free shipping to mainland USA on selected product if you spend $200 or more. Do yourself a favor. Go to accelerationkarting.com and make sure that you are never left stuck on the pre-grid with Henry. Be smart and don't be like Henry.
Are you looking for an advantage in your competition? Well, Kart Class has done the hard work for you. We've traveled to your racetracks to give you the inside knowledge. So what does Kart Class offer? We've got drone footage that captures the racing lines, visual markers for your braking points, acceleration zones, and the best overtake opportunities on your racetrack. Pedal cam to show you where to brake and when to accelerate, and 360-degree footage to make sure you don't miss any parts on the racetrack. We've covered 13 racetracks in the United States, and Australia, you're up next. So visit kartclass.com to get your track information.
Are you ready to get behind the wheel? From Formula One to NASCAR and IndyCar, all the pros start here.
more information, check us out online at mcckarting.com or call us and go racing today.
First couple of laps in the books here for Group 1 of 2 in the Brandon Jarsacrack Racing KA100 Senior Warm-Up session. Luke, welcome initially to the top here. 3 laps complete. We'll update and refresh that timing board so you can see on the left-hand side of your screen. Luke, welcome. Now bumped to second, actually. Quentin McPherson up to the top on the 979 RPG entry, but welcome on that Rocket Racing Company Kart Republic with a good opening couple of laps as he runs right behind one of the CRG Nordam drivers from Mexico. And I believe Javier Herrera is that one there, the 971 on the black and orange machine. Luke's going to go by him down in turns 3 and 4. Welcome, that time still went even better, 47.09. Let's see if Donovan Mania or Quentin McPherson can answer. McPherson will go to 5th. Dono will go to 3rd. And we've got now on our screen Aiden Rudolph and AJ Myers. 2 vastly different weekends to this point for 2 drivers that enter within shouting distance of the championship points lead, obviously. Alex?
Yeah, but for one of them being the CRG Nordam driver of Aiden Rudolph, I mean, it's been a weekend to forget for him. From practice, from warm-up to qualifying, he never really seemed comfortable. We heard him in the interview earlier yesterday, said that they're going to continue to work on it. The heat races went all right for him, consistently in the top 10 or 11 in his respective heats, but with penalties throughout those heat races, he starts outside the top 30, unlike that man who just made the pass, the Magic Man, AJ Myers, inside the top 3 all weekend long. He'll roll off 3rd in the final later today. This group actually has many of the heavy hitters that we can expect in that top 5, top 10 group. It's got Nick Gabriel, it's got Austin Jers, it's got AJ Myers. So this is really what all the teams and mechanics are looking at, is this first group of the KA Senior Warmup.
One thing that could be interesting to note is we might, if Austin Jers is able to somehow get away with a main event win, and it's not out of the question with how good he has been this weekend, it could be 2 out of the 3 mains won in this division by one-off drivers. Because again, Paulie Massimino winning Trackhouse Motorplex, one-off event. Austin Jers, this is a one-off for him as well, not involved in the championship. So, you know, Christian Miles said he wasn't really too upset and wasn't planning really to fight Paulie too hard for the win because he knew that it was going to be a big point swing for him. He entered the weekend here 78 markers back from Cooper Shipman. But if Austin Jers gets to the lead early, I would be maybe not surprised if one of the major championship contenders ends up behind him and kind of pushes him away from the rest of the field, or at least tries not to battle to get away, because we've talked about it a lot. This is a tight track. This is an old school track where, again, you see drivers up on the limit like Finn Bailiff there, high-siding a bit on the curb. The draft makes a little difference for sure. It kind of does keep the packs together, but you can make a lot of ground on your own and really control your own destiny here more than most other circuits that we visit. So, part of that is due to being able to decide whether or not you want to make passes and bottle the pack up or stay in line. And again, I could very easily see a Jesus Vasquez Jr., Christian Miles, AJ Myers maybe taking their time a little more with Austin Jers, because it doesn't matter if he beats them. They're racing the likes of each other, Aiden Rudolph and James Overbeck. Now, in this session, Jers has once again gone to the top, but it is not the initial championship contenders that follow him. As you mentioned, lots of heavy hitters, but it's actually Connor Ferris second, Bonilla third, Kane Martin, who had a great day yesterday, fourth. Luke Welcome on his final lap leapfrogs Finnegan Bailiff to go to fifth. Martin's going to go even better on that last lap. He'll jump up to P2, closing up a bit to Jers, who kind of opened that gap back up. Let's see if Dono answers back. He does not on the last lap. Nick Gabriel, Raheem Alibi, Emery Lida, and then Alan Isambard, the top 10. Probably the biggest spread of our top 10 drivers, even in a half and half group here in KA Senior to this point, Alex. Yeah, I mean, I was going to mention, I think, especially for the Stody guys, I mean, Isambard 5/10 back, Iser almost 6/10 back. Those are 2 drivers that had a pretty solid day. Isambard got shuffled out in that 3rd heat race, but
I began to notice from Micro Swift to KA Junior to KA Senior so far this morning, either it's a racetrack that is catching some drivers out, or we don't know what they're testing in the warm-up. Maybe some of them are just going out there and trying to set some absolute flyers, or they're trying to go out there and see what, maybe they made an adjustment. They just want to see what it feels like. Maybe they don't like it. Maybe they do like it. They don't want to set an absolute burner down and maybe put the field on notice. I think you made a great point, though. Whenever you enter in any sort of championship series, I mean, round one, you're always thinking, okay, maybe I could go for a championship, but you don't really think championship round 1 of 5. Round 2, okay, maybe if you have a good round 1, you could play it a little bit safer round 2. But round 3 is really where you kind of know where everybody stacks up against you, because now we're in the halfway point of the USBKS season. And if you're within that top 5, top 10 in points, you know, okay, I have a shot at this one. I'm going to enter round 4. I'm going to enter round 5. And like you mentioned, with Massimino winning round number 2, with potentially we have Jers and a couple other drivers in the mix for a victory here on a one-off event, especially for Austin Jers. It plays into the hands of Vasquez a little bit, Myers as well. They can play it safer. But if you're a driver that sits maybe outside the top 5, top 10 in points, you know that the drivers ahead of you in that point standings might play it safer, and you can almost be more aggressive against those guys knowing that they might give you a little more leeway.
Yeah, so maybe that crosses the minds of the drivers here this weekend when they go out for that main event. Maybe it doesn't. I mean, for us, we can analyze it all we want because we're having plenty of time to do that and no stress about trying to make sure that we're fast enough. We're just, again, having this bird's eye view of it all and trying to give you every potential angle. But I'm sure as well there's plenty of drivers who are thinking on a much more simple level than what Alex and I are describing, and that is I'm not fast enough to go and fight for the win and I need to get faster. And, one kid who is obviously hunting for that maiden win is James Overbeck on your screen. Funny enough, again, Nick Terlecki, plenty of podiums, but hadn't won a major in KA Senior, at least while he's been with Holtz DD. So it was the first major win of any kind for that team when he won the OKN Stars main event a month ago, or at the beginning of this month in Indiana. But for James Overbeck, again, enters the weekend 7th in the points, but I would bet that of anyone in the top 10 that is going to maybe go a little bit extra to try and get that major main event win, it would be the 948 machine. And he's had a, kind of mixed bag of results in the heat races. Some good runs, some bad runs, and then ultimately seems like he's blamed part of that on the suit because he's back in that red, white, and blue PPK BJR suit here today and no longer in his brand new offset black and yellow suit.
Yeah, as a driver, it's all about comfort, all about, superstition. We all have our own, and for James, it must be the suit. I would love to actually talk to him and see if that's kind of the case here. I'd assume so, because after Heat 1 and Heat 2, where nothing seemingly went his way, he took a P4 in that third heat with a suit change. So, he left the chassis alone, didn't do anything to the go-kart, didn't do anything to the driving, said, I'm going to change my outfit for the heat race, and it worked out for him. It's looking pretty good here so far in the warm-up. Let's see what he can do as the session rolls on. There's another driver who's been incredibly quick all weekend long. He's one of the main contenders in the point standings. It's a 977 GFC karting driver, Jesus Vasquez Jr. He had a really good, 1, 2, and 3, results in the heat races. But the one thing I will say, the bit of controversy that he had was the slight contact with AJ Myers in the final lap, and we heard AJ kind of say, listen, it's behind us, whatever, maybe a little too aggressive for a heat race. I'll be curious to see if anybody maybe repays the favor. I don't think so, because Vasquez Jr. is a driver that does play the long game, a smart driver, knows what he's doing, but now it's great to see him at the front consistently, I'd say.
These are also some of the fastest times we've seen here most of this weekend. Austin Jers at a 46.6. A great point brought up here by our internal team. That is 4/10 better than what Heat 3 saw at the end of the day yesterday here for these K100 seniors. I'd be curious if even more drivers go better this time. And they all look a lot more, free through the Rhino liner section as well, where we've seen more drivers kind of bounce up and over. I'm sure maybe a couple guys are a little loose, maybe a bit of oversteer in the regular parts of the racetrack, but able to send it and really utilize the grip in the Rhino liner early. And it won't stay like that. It might be like this enough for their main or somewhat close to it. But, again, that darker, patchwork, that darker asphalt, that's going to heat up quicker than the lighter regular pavement on the racetrack with the sun beating down on it as well. So all of that means that this may be the fastest session of the entire week for the KA seniors. Because as you know, Alex, rubber, at a certain point it gets either in the Rhino area, probably too much grip. In other, racetracks, sometimes it'll get too hot and grease over. But when the rubber laid down over the course of a week cools back down, and you're able to drive on it at 60-degree temperature weather like what we're seeing right now, it is fast.
Yeah, and that's explaining why we're seeing, the second group in both KA Junior and KA Senior tend to go quicker than that first group, is just because this track is getting a little bit quicker because the temperature is staying cool and almost cooled down, I feel like, when I walked out of the hotel room this morning. So if the temperatures can stay this way, we're in for some pretty quick lap times all through the warm-ups and even through the feature races. It's going to make it pretty interesting because now we entered Friday with a brand new racetrack. We entered yesterday with a brand new racetrack as well with the rain overnight. Now the first time no rain hit the racetrack, but a brand new racetrack again for the drivers to learn because there's more grip on the racetrack. And like you mentioned, it doesn't seem as though the grip is affecting the go-karts negatively. It's actually almost a positive.
Yeah, at least so far, right? Again, that could change, right? We could get, a good amount of track heat and build up by the end of the warm-ups, and then all of a sudden we're back to where we were yesterday afternoon. But running this early in the morning here for both warm-ups and then their mains might just help some of the drivers that have been struggling with too much grip in their cars, free things up as we've now got a few more joining near the top. We saw Terlecki go towards the top early. Jose Carlos Hernandez has gone to second. Cameron Weinberg's jumped up. Jesus Vasquez Jr. looks to be on a pretty quick lap here behind Cooper Shipman, but he just started to back off right as he caught up to Cooper. So your top two entering the weekend in the championship. Vasquez Jr. had an opportunity there if he wanted to go by Cooper and take him around for a lap. Instead, he faded back, closed up to him, learned what he wanted to, and then said, all right, I'm going to keep that to myself and stay behind him to the end of the session. Interesting little bit of gamesmanship from Jesus.
Yeah, I'd say the one thing I will note is after Group 1, we said the gaps were pretty large, but now that all 45 have gone out there on the racetrack, this gap is much shorter at the top, 600th separating your top two. Less than a tenth is your top four, and then down to 10th is Donovan Bonilla at about 2.5 tenths of a second. So that's more like it. That's what we expect from these KA Senior boys.
So let's take a look of where they all now have blended together officially on the warm-up results. Again, Jers, the privateer, on top at a 46.65. Like you said, Alex, it was half a second for the top 10, down to 2.5, all the way back to Bonilla, who gets pushed from the top 5 to 10th. Kaminsky, Cooper Shipman ends up 12th down there. Chase Buscalia, welcome Overbeck, 15, 3.5 tenths back. And then let's go ahead and look back here at the middle part of the 45. You got Finn Bailiff there in 16th, then down through to AJ Myers. That's a big notable P30 for the 923. The Magic Man slow in warm-up in the similar vein of Chico Brown compared to his results yesterday. And then let's see if we find any other more notable names here in the back 15. Doesn't really look like too many that are way out of whack. Maybe a few drivers further off than where they should be or where they'll line up in the grid for the main. But AJ, I think the big takeaway from that session of how far off the pace he was here in KA Senior Warmup. Alrighty though, the track's hot again, and it is time for Sodi Racing USA Mini Swift. And unlike KA Senior, that's been close and had multiple drivers at the front, there's been only one that they've all been chasing, and that has been none other than Parker Ives in the Ryan Perry Motorsport Nitro Kart. He's got some new drivers that'll be joining him around him here after the main event grid has been posted. Josh Bergman, first one out of the pits with his best starting spot to date in the Mini Swift class of third on the TKG Kart Republic. And he's not alone of some new faces towards the front of this 9 to 12-year-old division. But again, key word, towards the front. Parker has them all covered to this point.
Yeah, we saw in heat number 1 was the only time that a driver was able to challenge him. But heat 2 and heat 3 come around, and he put a combined total of about 10 seconds on the field if you combine his two win totals there in heat 2 and 3. So no surprise to see him starting on the inside of row number 1. I think what was really interesting to see, and why part of the deal is why Parker Ives is Parker Ives, is everybody decided to go out there for warm-up and just be together. And maybe you're not going to learn a whole lot when you're too busy battling with other drivers. The only driver that stayed on the grid until everybody left pit lane was Parker Ives. He wants to go out there and do his own session, do his own lap times by himself. Maybe he'll catch a driver or two, but I think that's the right thing to do, especially on a racetrack that you can tell has definitely picked up in lap time. You want to be able to learn things on your own. We just saw a glitch Parker Ives going through turn number 4 while the rest of the drivers are through turn 15. So he's all by himself out there on the racetrack. But to me, Xander, if I were you, I'd want to go out there on the racetrack and kind of learn doing my own thing than be around a bunch of other drivers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, in the case of Parker, he hasn't even gotten to get a gauge on gearing. I mean, you're always searching for more. When you go out by yourself or you run by yourself for a lot of the heat races, you don't learn anything of what the competition's doing, you know, gear-wise, setup-wise, anything on driving lines as well. So the warm-up is the one place that the fast guys can go further back in the field and try to get a gauge for it, because they might be better in, you know, 9 out of 10 corners or 9 out of 10 straightaways or 9 out of 10 parts of the straightaway. But that 1/10 that someone else is better, you can learn from and at least take that, note it, and whether you want to make a change to try and get that speed in that section that you feel like someone's got you beat, or just keep it in the back of your mind and know, okay, this is one place on the racetrack that if in the last lap or last couple of laps I've got someone on my tail, I need to defend here because this is a weak point for me, or this is a point that I don't want to pass right beforehand, because typically when you want to pass someone, you want to do it right before it's a section that is your best, that you can instantly go by them, and it's almost like an audition. You're wanting to pass the driver and then prove to them that you're fast enough that they shouldn't pass you back, or not even give them the chance to make that decision by pulling away as much as possible in the following sector. So you can learn still a fair bit, but again, you know, Parker, he's not taking anything I just said. He's going off what you're saying. He wants to go by himself and learn. Josh Bergman by himself learning. Jose Carlos Murad following the 140 a little bit, trying to go a little bit better, and Alex Chandler, following him, and at the top of the board, P2 right now for the Iron Rock Motorsports Gillard machine. On the one spot higher than him, though, is a new name for the driver at the top overall on the sheet, and that's Braden Wagner on the black and white GFC. We haven't featured him yet here in this warm-up session. We've been keeping an eye on a number of other drivers like Marco Salmon there at the end of the pack trying to carve up. Ashton Woon on that black and orange CRG. Of course, Bergman and Chandler going by. Here's Royce Vega. He had to carve his way through that group. He now jumps to P3. But Braden Wagner all by himself right now on the 120. Fastest, 49.702 for the young GFC driver.
Impressive there for Braden Wagner. He's had a pretty, I'd say, a quiet Saturday. He was consistently inside the top 10, top 12 in his heat races. Solid stuff for the GFC driver, but clearly this quicker morning racetrack, I'd say, has kind of helped the 120 machine, and he looks to be flying through this section of the racetrack. I mean, he's left the drivers behind him in the dust. He's caught this next group, which consisted, like you mentioned, of Vega, of the likes of Katowski and others as well in this group. Maxwell Macha, a driver that we haven't mentioned a lot this weekend. Surprisingly, there goes Woon to the inside of Macha, trying to make that move stick. But for Maxwell Macha, it's been a curious weekend for the SLA driver. I mean, he's usually a consistent top 5, top 10 contender at every racetrack that he goes to. He hasn't seemed to figure it out so far this weekend.
No, he has been a bit off this week. This track, this big change-up from the norm has taken a handful of contenders, at least 1 to 2 in every division that we would have expected to run towards the front. And whether it's the extreme grip conditions in the final 2 corners, or the difference in driving style it takes to be fast here, or just the fact that it's a new track to some, there's been 1 or 2 drivers in each class, if not more, that you would have maybe pegged to be, a kid to put your stopwatch on, or someone to be fast and not been that way. And unfortunately, Max is, like you said, just not quite been the Maxwell Macha that we've witnessed over the last couple of months, fighting for wins, fighting for podiums here in the mini Swift class. But it all can change on Sunday. That's the good part about how long the mains are here with the U.S. Pro Kart Series. These mini and micro Swift drivers, they got a bonus 2 laps here today as well. They were planned for 20. They're going to get to do 22 laps around this circuit, so that'll be just shy of about 19 minutes for the full distance. And we have seen a handful make some charges through the grid. I don't know if there's been any kid in particular in Mini Swift that's picked up double-digit spots over the 12 laps in the heats, but you know they're going to get now 22 to make up ground in the main. And if you are fast, if it took you until this morning to get your head on right, get your kart going, well then you'll be good there. Marco Samet banging his hands off the steering wheel. He's not happy with his go-kart here this morning, and it shows here on the score charts. He is not even in the top 10, or sorry, he is in the top 10, but something maybe on that last lap was an issue for Marco. I thought for a minute the way he was reacting, he must have been really off the pace, but he's fourth, only a 10th off of Braden Wagner. Benja Fernandez, teammate to Maxwell Macha on the SLA Kart Racing Kart Republic, showing that at least that team and that chassis combo is fast. He's third. Alex Chandler second. Parker Ives, the dominant kid from yesterday, all the way down the boards in eighth here in warm-up.
Yeah, a really tight field though. 2/10, just over 2/10 separates Braden Wagner from Brandon Ing here in the Mini Swift category. I want to mention, you talk about Benja Fernandez. He's a driver that I think quietly went under the radar as a consistent top 5, top 6 finisher yesterday in the Mini Swift heat races. He rolls off 8th for today's feature race, and if he can put together the laps that he did consistently in this warm-up session, if he kind of feels like this go-kart is going to be where he wants it for that 22-lap main event, he's a driver that I think with his caliber of racecraft and the ability to put down some lap times when needed, he's maybe the dark horse in this race for a driver starting not too far back to where it's almost impossible to get through. But 8th is a great position for Benja. There's a good look at Benja Fernandez there with the Kart Republic suit there as well. So for Benja, I think he's a driver that I'm looking at in this Mini Swift feature race later on in the morning and saying that guy, if he can put a good start together, is a contender for this win.
Well, with Mini Swift now parked for the morning, they will be the last class before the lunch break in the rotation of main events. They go out again at 11:14 local time, so in approximately 2 hours. Then there'll be the 40-minute lunch break here for the hardworking U.S. Pro Kart Series team and our Kart Chaser camera crew. Then X30 Junior rolls off at 12:19 p.m. Central, 1:19 p.m. Eastern. And they're going out right now here 4 hours prior at 9:18 a.m. local time. So they'll have a big gap. So will K Masters and X30 Pro Senior will have the biggest from 9:30 to 1:25 local time. Sorry, 3 hour gap for the X30 Juniors from this warm-up to their main for the first of the 3 afternoon classes that run after our lunch break. 12:19 local for them, 12:49 local time for K Masters, and then 1:25 local time, assuming we're able to run all on time here today. But as they head through turns 8 and 9, we got a little bit of intel overnight about Jackson Wolney. You'll notice that black and white Speed Concepts Racing Red Speed does have different bodywork than the rest of his teammates. And well, it is, we weren't sure if it was just a different bodywork, but same go-kart. It is indeed a Kart Republic for Jackson Wolney. Now, they have had maybe a little more grip than his teammates on the OTK chassis this weekend, and he's also on a bit of an older frame. He is on a generation from 2 years prior, so this would be a 2022 KR that Jackson finds himself on versus a 2024 package that some of the other Kart Republic drivers are on, like Enzo Vidmontien. But, still, with all that said, Jackson has been extremely quick. Top 3 pace in all 3 heats. Had that one moment in the first one with Enzo Vidmontien sending it on him in the last corner and kind of turning him sideways. He crossed the line 6th, recovering well. But for himself and Diego Ardiles, this is awesome for, Alex Speed and the entire Speed Concepts racing team to have 2 really good drivers that you can put on 2 different pieces of material and really learn and get a gauge of, how they're running on those and how to tune 2 different go-karts for probably 2 different styles. Because not only is Jackson Wolney fast, but Diego Ardiles has just gone to the top in warm-up, and he has been the fastest. So those 2 teammates were in the lead group all the way through yesterday. Diego obviously having a great Saturday. He's going to start on the pole. He's extended his championship lead already here in this weekend, his debut with SCR. And he's aboard the Red Speed. And so the fact that they've got 2 go-karts, 2 completely different chassis manufacturers under the same tent, they're able to learn try different things on both, and the fact they've got both running good speaks volumes to the boys in black, white, and red.
Yeah, they've really, I don't say turned it around, but usually the X30 Junior category, even the KA Junior category, is more of an RPG class, right? In terms of we have Chico Brown out there, Dalen Carr, and then it used to be Diego Ardiles, and they would kind of, have a monopoly on the class in terms of every time you turned on the junior category, they just seem to have it figured out. But this weekend, the RCR boys, whether it's a Kart Public, whether you're on a red speed or whatever it may be underneath that tent, they have, turned up the wick quite a bit here. Ardiles P1, Wolney P3 here in warm-up. I'd say the one driver that's been able to consistently contend against them is a driver going around the outside of Wolney, or attempting to. That's the Kart Public, the TKG driver of Enzo Vidmontien. Like you mentioned, he's on a 2024, unlike Wolney on a 2022 KR there. But nonetheless, Vidmontien, he had the penalty in heat number 1, but in heat number 2 and heat number 3, he was incredibly quick, did not look back. And so he's the one driver that I think, if I'm Diego Ardiles, if I'm Wolney, if I'm the likes of Chico Brown as well, who is, qualified P5, had a penalty, had to start 10th for every single heat race, drove his way to 5th and 6th throughout the heats, but consistently setting, if not purple lap times identical to Ardiles and Vidmontien. So I think those are the 3 that I'm looking at in the feature race later today, obviously with about a three-ish hour difference between warm-up and the feature race. Who knows what the track will be like, but those are the 3 drivers that I've looked at. I think Wolney has been fast, but he's had about a 10th or 2 to find throughout the heat races that I've noticed.
Big lap, though, from Turner Brown last time by, 45.748 for him, and Enzo Vidmontien 8th in the KA Junior warm-up session, where he was, probably the fastest car through the heats yesterday, or at least one of, and then an X30 Junior where he was close, maybe second or third best through the day, even further off. Still 8th here, but less drivers means that 8th is half a second. Now let's see if he can find a little more. That lap was down to 4/10 away. Still 8th. Nope. Open back up to half a second again as Chico finds a little more speed. I want to talk about Michael McGoy, though. How about it for this rookie? The Ryan Perry Motorsport Tony Kart has been pretty fast through all 3 heats, through the different conditions, through the wet and the dry. Definitely doesn't hurt that he sits about a foot lower than the rest of the junior drivers when they go through those 2 high grip hairpins here. But Michael is running all on his own. He's already got a major win by taking the OKNJ inaugural victory at the Stars Championship Series in Charlotte. But, for him and his progress here on his rookie year in junior compared to where he started with that debut at Rock Vegas in November last year, I mean, this is pretty mega. He's been fast. He's been up front, battling, and each weekend seems like he's been, making a new leap towards the front end and towards the dominating this junior division, just like he was able to run up front so effortlessly, it felt like, in Mini. Penalty flag or investigation flag being displayed there for the Nash Motorsports Energy of Levi Sangera. He ends 15th here in the session, but there you can see them using the track light system to let at least him know that whatever he did there in that session, the U.S. Pro Kart Series officials were not thrilled about. So Levi Sangera, 15th. Let's go through the full results here from your X30 Juniors quickly before the KA Masters roll on to the circuit. Again, Chico Brown, quick time, 45.614. McGoy, Ardiles, Vanchev, and Enzo Vidmontien on his last couple of laps started to at least leapfrog some of his competitors. Still ends about 4/10 to find. In fact, everyone's got nearly 3/10 to find if you're not Michael McGoy.
Yeah, Chico Brown really putting the field on notice. He's not really a driver that any of the top 3 or 4 saw all weekend because he was too busy having to charge through the field. But definitely a warm-up to remember for Chico Brown. Let's see if he can transfer that over to the feature race later today. You talk about McGoy really finding some pace on the junior package. I think Vanchev has been very impressive all weekend long. We saw him 4th in the warm-up, consistently a top 3, top 5 driver in both KA Junior and X30 Junior. So this is really the first weekend that he seems comfortable on board that Stody Kart USA machine.
And just like as we've seen in other classes, X30 Junior 2/10 faster than where they were in the final heat race yesterday. Granted, again, that might have been a little bit of tire dag also, but I can't imagine that many drivers went out on stick or rubber here for the warm. Maybe a few, but you don't anticipate everyone to do that just at a regular season event. You'll see the entire field at Supernats pretty much go new tires in the warm-up to prepare for the new tire run in the main, and all classes except for this one are going to a new set of tires in the final. But I think it speaks more to the racetrack than to the tire life of whatever set they went on, with it being just nice and free and cool here this morning. Now, KA Masters at 12 drivers strong, like you mentioned a little bit yesterday. Wes Steeves did a good job in helping bring out some more of the local talent here this weekend. They pushed to say, hey, you know what? Listen, you got to keep us from ourselves. Yes, this is national level racing. Yes, we're racers. We're going to spend every dollar that we have, but can you just update the rule? We don't need to go to a new set of tires for the main event. RMG Reds will last long enough to make it all the way there. And the U.S. Pro Kart Series obliged, and that's helped, I think, maybe tip the tide of deciding whether or not to pull the trigger on racing this weekend here to get us to 12 in the Masters class. So they are the only division of the 7 that will stay on the tires that they qualified on and ran all their heats on. And for Laurentiu Mardan, we got to see kind of the heats slowly fade the little tire advantage he had by not going out for qualifying for those 4 to 5 laps that the other drivers did, not having that heat cycle. Heat 1, he was a rocket ship. Heat 2, still fast. And Heat 3, he was good also, just took him a little longer as the field both caught up to his pace and, again, the tires slowly started to wear out and even because it's a decreasing rate of return, as they slowly plateau out by session 4 and session 5.
Yeah, the driver ahead of Mardan is Martin Stone. He had a mixed results throughout the heat races. Heat 1, some issues mechanically. Heat 2 and 3, he had a bad start at the drive back through the field. But for the 4-hole machine, after what was a pretty awesome, happy hour on qualifying sessions for the RPG driver, it seemed to have faded away slightly throughout the heat races for him. Nonetheless, he's escaped, what could have been, an outside of the top 8, top 10 results. He starts 5th for today's feature race. He's a driver that I expect to see towards the front, and he's made it happen even with, bad starts, mechanical issues, whatever has plagued him throughout the weekend. So for Martin Stone, I think he's a driver that I don't expect to just let everybody get away. For Mardan, we saw him get a 2nd and 2/3. That puts him 4th for the feature race today, behind 2 of the Franklin Motorsports drivers who sit 1 and 2. Nicky Coelho, Scott Kopp, they're on the front row. Mario Barrios has snuck his way into a top 3 starting spot for the feature race today as well. So very impressive for the 411 machine, a driver who we did not expect to be here after the accident we had in Orlando just a couple months ago. He's driving at 60%, he said, but I think after the confidence that he's probably built throughout the weekend, I'd say that number's risen a little bit.
Yeah, I would say as well. I mean, he's rolling off 3rd for the main event today. I don't think, Mario Barrios anticipated that at all. Now, again, the main 25 laps, that'll be a big test of, physical endurance along with physical strength and just overall stamina. And, when you're kind of recovering, you're going through physical therapy after a scary moment like he had, again, these guys in this class are not 15-year-old kids that bounce back like rubber and instantly from any kind of injury. It takes a little bit longer for their bodies to get back to, where they were and sometimes not even fully. So that'll be the big test at this point. But, like you said, Alex, as physical as this racetrack has been described to us with the curbs, with the Rhino liner, having to just hold the steering wheel tight, and keep it straight through some of the bumpier, rubbered up sections, Mario's been able to do it, just as we would expect of him had we, seen this as a race middle of last year or any time in the last few years when he's been, at a full 100%. So to roll off 3rd here in the main, and the only 2 guys starting in front of him are 2 drivers that have way more laps at this racetrack than he will ever have, in Scott Kopp and Nicky Coelho. That is extremely, extremely good. Sadly, what's not good right now is what just happened for Junaid Dean. He has already gone off to the wayside here in the infield, and he will not get to continue and finish his warm-up with about a minute and a half remaining. Junaid down in 11th, 2/10 off Paul Elefante, and about a 2.25 seconds ahead of Andre Isaac.
about 2 laps remaining in the warm-up session is Nicky Coelho. He's starting on pole position later today. He's the quickest right now at warm-up, but behind them, it's the 2 RPG drivers of Martin Stone, Mario Barrios. So they've actually found quite some pace here in the morning sessions. In all classes, I'd say. We saw Chico Brown, top the boards in the X30 class. In the KA, he was, down there in, almost in 30th, but Emmanuel Martinez was very fast as well. So the RPG boys clearly liking the colder conditions. Not like they weren't really up there anyways, but here in the Masters class, they've actually topped the board now. Martin Stone, a 47.359, Barrios second. So this is the first time all weekend that it's not either a Franklin Motorsports driver or a Technokart driver on the top of the board.
Yeah, they have definitely found something here this morning, and RPG is again one of the higher budget end teams, so it's not as much of an issue for their drivers typically to go to new tires than some of the others that may be a little bit on the lower end of the budget scale. But again, I don't think either one of them have done it because they don't get new tires for the final. So Martin Stone, Mario Barrios, like you said, big leap forward here this morning, finding the pace they need. Nicky Coelho is close. Last time around, he ended up just 800ths off. Let's see if he goes a little better. You saw his hands really busy in that back section there up until the last turn. Is it a good enough lap to go to the top? It is not. He will slow down there at the end. So will Scott Kopp. In fact, no one really went any better on the last lap. Mario Barrios knew his lap wasn't going to be good enough, so he already bailed in and headed for the scale house. So did Christian Vomir, and he ends down in 9th. One more session to go, though, here as the K Masters make their way on in, and that, of course, again, will be the X30 Pro Seniors. So here's one last look at the veterans and where they stacked up in morning warm-up. 1/10 for the top 4, 4/10 for the top 7. But here we are for a look down to the grid, and we mentioned that maybe some of the drivers here would be looking to go new rubber. Alessandro Di Tullio and the Interim S Kart Republic boys will be. That is a brand new set of MG yellows for ADT in the 320, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's not alone, Alex.
Yeah, I would be very surprised for the drivers that do have the budget to do it. Obviously, it would not surprise me one bit to see almost the entire field on a brand new set of MG yellows. I think it's very beneficial. It's worth the extra bit of money there just to go out there and get your testing done on the new rubber because, the future race are going to have some new tires on. You would not want to go out there on 4 or 5 session old MG yellows because it's almost going to be useless to you in terms of data points. But the one thing, talking about data points, I'd say when the X30 Senior boys head out on the racetrack for their feature race, about 1:25 local time here, that's very identical to what the track condition would maybe expect to be like for heat number 2 yesterday. If the temperatures stay cooler, then I'd say it's still slightly different. But I think a lot of these drivers are going to compare what they found in heat number 2 yesterday, maybe even the afternoon session on the Thursday or the Friday before that rain came. But I think it's a brand new racetrack for a lot of these drivers. We've seen the lap times tumble down. It's a quicker racetrack. They don't really have a time of day temperature to compare it to for the weekend.
Yeah, no, they do not. This is the only time really that the track's going to feel like this for them. They're having to guess how much grip the track is going to take over the next 3 hours before they go back out for their main, right? I mean, yeah, going out in the new tires, they're not going to get much of a read if they were to go out on their older rubber from the heat races because it's got 4 total heat cycles on them. They might have raced hard as well and overcooked them initially. But, 3 hours until they go and put another set of MG yellows on for the main event. You can only gain so much, on what you're going to get out of your go-kart. You're going to find out what your go-kart does, how much grip it picks up with the new tires, but you'll have to keep in mind that the track is going to be a little more free. So you're hoping, no matter what you do with your tire strategy, that in this session you're a little bit slower if you're in this class, and being slow mainly due to the fact that you are a little bit loose. Can't say the same for those first couple divisions. The track's probably going to be pretty similar for them, but for X30 Pro right now, if I'm out there and I'm one of the 18 drivers on the race or 17 drivers on the racetrack here, Alex, I'm hoping that I'm slipping and sliding around and maybe a couple of tenths off.
That's always the rule of thumb, right? I knew that it was going to be a good race if I was really slow in warm-up. That's kind of how I benchmarked everything. You obviously want to be quick enough in warm up, but if I go out there on a 9:37 a.m. Central Time, and I know my feature race is at 1:25, if I'm out there and I feel really gripped up right now, I'm going back to the team and saying, let's need to free this thing up, because right now we're gonna have way too much grip when the feature race comes later today.
Yeah, way too much. I mean, there is going to be these guys bouncing through this corner and the next one, probably all laps of the 25, because they're going to go right in the heat of the afternoon at 1:30. That'll be probably the worst the track will feel for them to this point of the weekend in terms of the level of grip and how overstuck they may be. But one driver that's mastered it for sure is Austin Garrison, and well, he's also really fast here in the warm-up too. He would be the only one that maybe wouldn't be too worried. Is Harley Keeble has gone into the scale line and a very early exit. I mean, he's only gotten 2 laps in. They were both well off the pace at about 6 seconds back, running in the 51-second bracket. Don't know what the issue was, but this weekend has just been rough, and then maybe one glimmer of hope with the 3rd heat yesterday. Mechanical failure took him out in heat 1, crash took him out early in heat 2, and then here in heat 3, he was able to claw his way into the top 6, but he starts way back in the field, while Austin Garrison will lead the field to green after being perfect so far this weekend. I mean, the closest anyone's gotten was Norberg, had maybe gotten the lead for a minute or two, or not even a minute, but a second or two by nosing ahead. Never fully ever got clear of the 329. It's been all AG up front. Harley Keeble would like to join him, but a session like this doesn't help. Harley, what's going on here with the go-kart? Obviously a quick early exit.
We just tried something this morning with the go-kart, and yeah, it felt good, so I just got told to do a few laps and to stop. But yeah, it feels good, and well, yesterday, based off the last heat, the speed was really good, so hopefully if I get a good start in the final today, I should be there to hopefully win it.
Now we've seen, obviously from your point of view, having to work your way up the pack. You've had to go outside and inside. 2 weeks ago at MCC was the craziest I think we've seen it in a while, of the marbles offline. Is there a similar situation with the pavement here this week?
Yeah, for sure, because the rubber is only just built up, so there's more marbles than usual. And here it's just naturally a slippy track, so off the line it's not the best, but as long as I get through the first few laps, I should be good.
All right, Harley, thanks for chatting with us. We know you got work to do. We'll let you get to it.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's Harley Keeble, folks. So much different than what we thought as he pulls in early. Obviously just made a quick change, didn't want to show their hand, did a couple laps, pulled in. So he's good. Nick Terlecki is out, though, and way out there in the 388. I mean, obviously over and by the pillows, and not where, most guys go off. That's going into one of the backside hairpins, it looks like. So as Nick gets his cart up and over to the side, we've seen the leaderboard start to look a little bit more familiar. Ryan Norberg up to second, closest to Austin Garrison, half a tenth off of Garrison's best. ADT 2.5 tenths back there in third. Josh Holtz, backup motor today, as his motor grenaded on the first 3 corners of Heat 3 yesterday. He's fourth right now. His teammate Alex Feldstein, P5. Bonilla in sixth. Brandon Carr, seventh. And then back down, Paulie Massimino down in 10th. He ran most of his heat races in the top 5 yesterday after qualifying 3rd overall. Had a DQ in one of his heats, and that's unfortunately put him back to the 4th row, starting P7 for today's main. But not a great warm-up for him, so maybe, like you said, Alex, as he jumps up to 6th, that it's a good sign that, he'll be a little bit better. ZCD there's his mechanic under the Team Bennick operation, showing him the lap times as well. DeMello, P9. Half a tenth better would put him all the way up to 5th. Massimino and Feldstein literally tied for the final spot in the top 5.
Yeah, for reference here, the fastest lap we've seen all weekend long that was turned by the X30 Pro Senior boys was a 44.9 as Feltzian giving it everything through turn number 10, keeping it on the racetrack, so good job for the Ho TD driver. But a 44.9 was as low as we got all weekend long during the qualifying session on Friday. They're down to a 44.658. I know they're on new rubber, but they're on new rubber for qualifying as well. So just to give you an idea of just how much faster this racetrack is right now, yeah, it's got to feel different for a lot of these drivers. Garrison 44.6, Norbert down to the 44.7s there as Garrison crosses the line. No improvement for him. Impressive for DeTulio. We talked to him a lot throughout the weekend. I spoke with him as well. You know, he feels confident. He thinks that he has pace, but he doesn't, where he's lacking, because I talked to him at the end of the day yesterday. He said, listen, late race pace, I'm matching the lap times. We're all doing, you know, low 45s in middle to the end of the race. It's those first couple of laps that Garrison Norbert on cold tires seems to have that edge over everybody. And DeTulio told me he's scratching his head. He has no idea where that pace is.
Yeah, so he's probably not alone. One of them that I'm sure is scratching as well is probably Brandon Lemke there on the Franklin Motorsports Merlin. He's looking for a little more here this morning as well for his home race. Eli Warren on his debut has been getting close, but it's like 4th to 12th at any given point in the heats. We're probably pretty identical on times, you know, without someone maybe being way off. Everyone, I think, is searching to catch Ryan Norberg and Austin Garrison. But it's a quick turnaround, folks. We've got just very quickly the national anthem and then the main events. We're going to switch over to the main event stream, and then the Micro Swift final will kick us off here this morning.